He's editor-in-chief of Breitbart News and a New York Times best-selling author. And on this podcast, he brings deep research, prescient analysis, and world-class guests. He's Alex Marlow, and this is the Alex Marlow Show.
All right, Marlow Show. We're slammed today because Congressman Jim Jordan is going to be here in a little bit. A lot of news going on. Tomorrow is Jobs Day, but unfortunately, I'm not going to be able to do a full breakdown because I'm heading to a CPAC event in Los Angeles. I haven't done one of those things in a while, but it's in the LA area. So it makes sense that I make a cameo over there. So I'll be doing that. We have an incredible interview for you with Alan Jackson, who is a world-renowned pastor, literally. So he'll be here on the show for a deep dive talking about angels, Demons, and You, which is his latest book, but it's really a theme of his research and his ministry. So you guys are going to like that. And I'll probably chime in for something quick, but I don't know exactly. I don't know because we're busy here at the Marlow Show and at Breitbart News. We were absolutely dominating right now, and a lot of it's thanks to you guys. I was just looking at some of the numbers that we have lately at Breitbart, and it really is sort of full spectrum domination. I was looking from NewsWhip, which is one of the biggest trackers of social media. Breitbart right now is on Facebook. We're the fourth biggest publisher on all of Facebook, and that's ahead of all of our competitors, even big shots like the New York Times and the Daily News. So Fox, something called Lad Bible, which I think is viral stuff from the UK. ABC News, which I was surprised, but we're number 4 and, ahead of the Daily Mail, ahead of New York Times, ahead of People Magazine, ahead of NBC News. Unbelievable stuff. So thank you to all of you on that. We are on the X platform. This one surprised me the most. We're the 6th biggest publisher on X, which I had no idea we were that big. I thought X was not our strongest platform for us, but apparently we're pretty good at it. After Bleacher Report, Fox News, ESPN, the New York Post a little bit ahead of us, and Newsmax basically tied with us. And we're ahead of the AP, we're ahead of ABC, we're ahead of obviously New York Times, et cetera. So pretty wild. I had no idea because I thought that was one of the platforms we perform not even the best. So dominant over there as well. And overall on the internet, we are apparently the 4th biggest web publisher in total after Fox News, CNN, and CBS. So wild, just ahead of the BBC, New York Times. I don't even know what to say. So thanks to all of you for supporting us in the Breitbart audience. Global domination. That's what we look to bring to you. And what I'm most excited about is not just the braggadocio element. It's more that, well, what could this mean? Could we grow? Could we do more multimedia? Could we do deeper investigations? And when you start seeing these types of numbers that could inspire investment and that sort of thing, that ups the potential of the things that we can do together. So that is great news to start the show, and it's all thanks to you in the audience. So telling 10,000 friends and family members, helping the podcast grow, all that you guys are a part of something that's already big, and it's just going to grow because we're high energy, very happy with life, and looking forward to what could become as America starts its new golden age. Less happy news, I guess. A National Security Advisor, Mike Waltz, is apparently on the way out, as well as his deputy, Alex Wong, who we butt heads with Alex Wong a little bit a while ago, but Boyle said he kind of came around and isn't a bad guy after all. Matt Boyle's our Washington bureau chief here at Breitbart and kind of is my eyes and ears on some of this stuff. I don't really know why a lot of people had it out for Waltz, but I think that there were 2 big things. The first one was the Signal chat debacle where Jeffrey Goldberg was somehow added to this chat, and the chat was really controlled by Waltz. I doubt that Waltz was the guy who physically added Goldberg to the chat. I don't know if it was some sort of a sabotage or some sort of complicated mistake, but a mistake it was. And that is, it's I'm not saying unforgivable because it didn't really cause any problems other than a headache of a news cycle, but I would not have liked to have been the guy who was ultimately responsible for that. And I'm sure it didn't make others happy in the room that a lot of people are pointing the finger at Pete Hegseth. I don't know what Hegseth had to do with it. And Hegseth has taken his share of heat. So I don't know who is behind it, but I will tell you that Waltz had gotten the reputation for wanting to have a war with Iran. I never spoke to National Security Advisor Waltz. We were actually talking about doing interviews periodically since he had become the National Security Advisor. And we were aligned to do an interview the week of the Signal chat. So once that debacle took place, Reasonably, he was pretty busy dealing with stuff. Didn't do a lot of interviews during that time. So he's gone. What I lament about it is that I know Dr. Gorka, Dr. Gorka works for President Trump, but he's an ally of mine and at Breitbart, and he always liked working for Walz. And I think that Walz, I don't know for sure if he was a guy who was trying to get Trump to start new wars, but that was a reputation he got with some of Trump's most ardent supporters. So there was a big target on his back. And after the Signal chat scenario, people moved to try to get rid of him. So that's where we are. So he's on the way out. I don't know who's coming in. Who could it be? If you have a suggestion, aloha@alexmarlow.com. A lot of great choices. Rick Grenell, of course, comes to mind very quickly as a guy who could do that. But Grinnell's helping out a lot of other ways as well right now, particularly out where I am in California. But a lot of good people for him to choose from. But it's complicated because Walz came out of the Congress and then he left a safe seat for this job, got kicked out quickly. If you go to work for President Trump and his motto is literally "you're fired," there's a big risk that you could get fired. So part of the gig, and he's a big boy, so I'm sure he can handle it. But, it's a shame. And that is something that does get broadcasted to the rest of the cabinet, that the media can still get a scalp. They'll claim this wasn't a scalp, but come on, guys. And also the fact that you could leave a good job and then do a job like this for 3 months, then get booted. But you know what? Maybe he deserved it. I didn't know him very well, but it's it seemed like he was certainly fending off a lot of challenges throughout his brief tenure. He's gone. Obviously, the chaos vibe is not terrific for the administration, and we'll see who comes in next, but it could be someone amazing. So I don't know if Walz was ever going to be amazing at it. And that's one thing where I'm always hopeful when there's a shakeup that you could get someone who is potentially better. So who knows? Maybe that's what will happen next. Other cabinet folks, though, are doing a terrific job. Scott Turner's done a big interview with us at Breitbart now. Here he's walking through HUD eliminating perverse incentives that have crippled our nation, talking about using the urban housing and government housing as more of a trampoline. And he says that the mentality under Biden and past administrations has been basically to make permanent housing. And that was never the intention of what housing and urban development was all about. It was not about just having socialism and communism. It was about trying to help people get on their feet and then back out there. And a lot of the housing was directed towards illegal aliens. Another way that illegal aliens are a problem for us in this country is that we build them houses, they get a cut rate on them, and then they stay. They don't leave because they're not trying to use it as a trampoline. They're trying to save as much money as possible so they could send it out of the country via remittances. And it seems like he knows what needs to be done. And we're going to see, we'll see what that looks like, especially when you get the Democrats championing every single illegal alien criminal as if they're some sort of a saint. The Kilmar Abrego Garcia scenario continues to get more strange with his wife had apparently filed a second protective order against him in 2020, says that he made murder threats, and she said that his children are afraid. So there's a lot of talk these days about Trump deporting children. He's not deporting children, really. He's deporting mothers, and the mothers aren't abandoning their children when they get deported. So if the mother comes illegally and happens to have a child, and the mother gets deported, as she should, it doesn't mean the kid should just stay with no one. So I will tell you that in my family, if we all got deported, we will not be. Even if we got sent out to El Salvador. El Salvador's not terrible, though. I got to pick a worse asshole country to choose as my paradigmatic bad place to get deported to. But if we got deported, you better believe that all the kids are coming with us. Like, I know their school system is better here, but they're coming with us at least for a little while until we figure out if we can get back or not. If we think we're going to be gone forever and we feel like they could still use the American school systems, then, but who knows even? Like, really, honestly, who knows? So anyway, so that's what's going on. And Abrego is not only a guy who is clearly involved in human trafficking. He had threatened his wife multiple occasions and allegedly made murder threats against her, which made his kids scared. And thus, you're seeing the Democrats lighten up a little bit on that. The media is broken. For decades, big cable and legacy media have filtered information to hide the truth. But thanks to podcasts and new media like this show, the truth can break through, providing voices and views the legacy outlets block from the air. But big cable still has one major way to control information, and that's access. They do this by limiting access to something called spectrum, the invisible airwaves that power affordable wireless internet, and by forcing you into their bundles, keeping independent media out of reach. Trump and Republicans in Congress have a chance to do something big here by making more spectrum available and breaking big cable's stranglehold on information. So there's a couple things you could do to find out more. You can go to endthecableopoly.org. That's endthecableopoly.org for more information about how to make more spectrum available. And if you're convinced, you should call your senators and your members of Congress and say, hey, why don't you work with President Trump and try to make more spectrum available? So endthecableopoly.org to find more. Economy is continues to be front and center. My Fight Club interview today is with John Carney, who is our economic and finance editor at Breitbart News, who's been on the show a number of times and is the absolute best in the business at understanding what's really going on. And there's a lot of interesting data because we saw the contraction, but we're also seeing a huge surge in spending right now, which is big. We're seeing private sector investment nearing $8 trillion since Trump took office, which is massive, including that $5 trillion in reshoring, basically due to the threat of tariffs that I have brought up multiple times on the shows this week. And a lot of the hand-wringing about the horrible nature of the stocks it's just way overblown. We were looking at data from Dow Jones and the February, which the Wall Street Journal said was going to be the worst February since, I think, 1930 something or other, since probably 38. That's usually what they choose. So since 1938, it was going to be the worst February ever. It wasn't the worst February since last year. Last February, the Dow dropped 4.43%. This year, it dropped only 2.89%. The S&P was only down 1% last month. So I know the stocks are down 10% or so since Trump came in, but it's very marginal. It really is not the biggest deal on planet Earth. And it is one of these things where I want the stock market to do well, but the stock market is not the president. And us resetting global trade, coming up with this new paradigm that we have discussed virtually every episode of the show in this month of April and moving into May as we begin May today. May Day, by the way. So big communist holiday today. As that goes on, we'll continue to keep people optimistic. So, we don't want to see a lot of months of contraction, obviously, but a lot of that, as we discussed on yesterday's show, has to do with some of the imbalance and some of these imports. A lot of that's going to even out. And I have confidence that Trump is going to move towards a deal with China, which will reassure a lot of people. There were talks this morning of Scott Bessent meeting with China. So I don't know how far that's going to go or how quickly it's going to move, but that certainly seems to be happening. And so when that's underway, that could be a positive thing. And a mineral deal with Ukraine is apparently well underway. I got some audio of Bessent talking about this that Misty has dutifully pulled for us on the show. Let's check this out.
Thanks to President Trump's tireless efforts to secure a lasting peace, I am glad to announce the signing of today's historic economic partnership agreement between the United States and Ukraine, establishing the United States-Ukraine Reconstruction Investment Fund. This partnership allows the United States to invest alongside Ukraine to unlock Ukraine's growth assets, mobilize American talent, capital, and governance standards that will improve Ukraine's investment climate and accelerate Ukraine's economic recovery. The Development Finance Corporation will participate and help to establish this fund in collaboration with the government of Ukraine. Today's agreement signals clearly to Russian leadership that the Trump administration is committed to a peace process centered on a free, sovereign, and prosperous Ukraine over the long term.
Okay, so far I got a few more seconds of this, but just to note where he's at. He's calling out Russia and saying we're sending a signal to Russia that if you mess with Ukraine any further, then you're messing with America's bottom line. And that's a message that Putin can take to back to Moscow and say, hey, look, here's the deal. America is only going to let us get away with so much. And so and I think it could be a way for Putin to start messaging that we do got to bring this thing home. But what he's not saying, and this has been the pattern with this administration, the elephant in the room here is China. And really what this is all about is continuing to insulate ourselves, protect ourselves from China. We are way too dependent on China's rare earths, which only have about 30% of the world's rare earths under their soil or in their territory, and yet I think it's over 80%, maybe even closer to 90% of the rare earth production on Earth. That is not good. It's not acceptable. And especially moving into the brave new AI era we're in, we don't know which of these minerals and resources we're going to need. And we need to make sure we've got enough. This is a way to get some more. All this makes sense and is very good.
It's time for this cruel and senseless war to end. The killing must stop. And both the United States and the government of Ukraine look forward to quickly operationalizing this historic economic partnership for both the Ukrainian and American people.
Yeah, very good. All that is great. And a lot of productive stuff coming from Scott Bessent, who's been, I think, one of the best, if not the best choice of them all. But it is it's a noteworthy moment that this could be the beginning of something really great. We also got word that Director of National Intelligence Tulsi Gabbard is investigating Dr. Fauci for perjury for his role in perhaps funding the Wuhan gain of function research tied to COVID-19. Here's what we know, that America did help fund the Wuhan lab. We know that Fauci lied about that to Rand Paul in the Senate. That's clear as day to me. Thus, the pardon that Biden gave. All this reporting has been done thoroughly, just not only by me, but at Breitbart, pretty much any other responsible conservative over the last couple of years. So pretty obvious there. But then the question is, did we specifically fund the gain of function research that led to the COVID-19 virus? And that would be unbelievable if true. And just to think that we thought that this pandemic originally started from a pangolin that was in a soup with a bat and it was undercooked, and then people ate the soup at a dog meat and bat meat and pangolin meat festival in Wuhan. And that's somehow what killed tens of millions of people and destroyed the global economy. And now we're learning that no, it was the lab, and it was the lab that we were all told we were conspiracy theorists if we thought it was the lab, and that American funds went to that lab, and perhaps even funds that were signed off on by Dr. Fauci himself could have potentially been involved in this particular virus. Tulsi Gabbard is looking into all that, and I love the spirit of holding the bad guys accountable. I wish it wasn't necessary, but it is absolutely necessary. It is happening, and that is great news for me. Another key player of Trump's administration that is having a tougher go of it is Elon Musk. He's lost like $100 billion since he took on the Doge project. I think there is now officially, I'm not clear on the Doge accounting. It feels like that I don't totally get what's being cut, how much is being cut. And we had the initial burst, that sugar high from all the USAID stuff. I would like to see a more adequate, clearer sense of where we're at. I think it's probably time to check in with Senator Ernst, who I think actually did a better job of walking through what was being cut than pretty much anyone else. And she did so on the show. So we'll have to check back in with her. Maybe I'll try to do that next week. But the Wall Street Journal reported Tesla is now looking for a new CEO. Musk has eviscerated this article, saying it's deliberately false, but clearly there's some people who aren't happy that Musk has kind of not spending quite as much time on his businesses, shall we say, in order to help Trump, and him helping Trump, which I think helps the country, and I admire him for doing that, is become more of a mixed bag in recent days. So I'm keeping an eye on that to see where it goes. You guys know I tend to be more of a Musk skeptic on the business perspective, but very thoroughly excited by Doge. As I've said, even if it doesn't go as far as we want it to go, the principle of the matter, we've never even tried to look under the hood. We've never even tried to send a signal to Washington that cutting bureaucratic waste is unacceptable. And he's doing that. I give him mountains of credit, and he's taken so much heat. We had just another incident the other day. A judge ordered a suspect behind the firebombing of a Missouri Tesla released from federal custody. And this person, you guys are familiar with the story know where I'm going with this. This person might not be of their biological gender. So this is a person who has allegedly been diagnosed on the autism spectrum, but I mean, isn't everyone on the autism spectrum these days? ADD, which doesn't everyone have that? Depression and gender dysphoria, according to court records. So this person's a clearly insane person, a mental health person. And that's what we point this out. The gender stuff is not really about, I'm not saying that there isn't an incident in world history, but overall, what we're seeing with the gender stuff is it is largely about people who are crazy, and it just is. And we've taken the approach that we take them all literally and seriously at the same time if they announce that they're in the wrong gender, and then maybe we decide a few of them are crazy. We've got to reverse that. We got to assume you're dealing with a deep mental health issue. And then the burden of proof is going to be very heavy that this person really is some sort of gender dysphoria, because the type of person who is going to firebomb a Missouri Tesla, and it might be the exact type of person who might be confused on what sex or gender they're in. So deeply violent people on the left, they've been harboring this. This has been apparent to anyone who reads the news. Andrew Breitbart was the best on this when it came to his Occupy Wall Street coverage from the beginning. Contrast out of the Tea Party, which was peaceful. The left-wing populist movement at the time was violent. There were rapes going on at all these camps. There was all sorts of drugs and violence and Molotov cocktails and things like that. And the left just harbors a very violent nature. And when you've got judges trying to release them because of political purposes, it's a big deal. And it's got to be draining on guys like Musk who have to deal with all this day in and day out. So anyway, we wish him the best and hope all this works out. All right, Congressman Jim Jordan is here. Fan favorite in the Breitbart News audience, that's for sure, and for good reason. Congressman, you and Congressman Mast sent us a really incredible article that we ran at Breitbart yesterday, and this thing was all over the place, dominating social media, talking about rogue judges who are out to stop Trump's America First agenda. The last subject that I hit in my opening right before I brought you on was another judge letting out a violent criminal who's bombing Teslas, or we'll say allegedly for the sake of not getting sued, but we know what's going on. Clearly a nutcase, letting these people back on the street. It is so overwhelming. This is the heart of the resistance, these lawfare judges. But you're someone, as head of House Judiciary, someone who's deeply in tune with this. Explain the scope and where you think the real pain points are.
Well, I think there's three avenues we have in the Congress and a legislative body. We can pass legislation. We can do oversight and draw attention to all the crazy things like you just highlighted that are going on. The judge in Milwaukee who let the bad guy out the back door while the good guys were coming in the good door, front door to arrest him, and on and on and on. The judge Boasberg, who said, turn the plane around, bring back the guy who a court had already found was here illegally and was part of an international terrorist gang. Turn the plane around, bring him back to America. So we can highlight that with oversight. We had Speaker Gingrich come in a hearing a few weeks ago. He did a great job, and he did just that, highlighted how ridiculous this all was. And then you can also use, like I said, the power of the purse, legislation, and oversight, all three levers. We have done one bill. It's already passed the House, which says if one of these federal district judges issues an injunction, it only applies to the parties in the case in that respective jurisdiction. It doesn't apply nationwide. So that is a way to rein. And even Justice Kagan a few years ago said that made sense. And now we have the bill that Brian's introduced, or Chairman Mast.
Hold on, but before we get to the next bill, because this is crucial. I want to take these one at a time to make sure we get the full airing for the audience, because this seems to me the most obvious one, and the one that it does feel like Congress can deal with this, which is that confining these injunctions to the jurisdiction or a jurisdiction. This is the big loophole that I traced it back to Mark Elias figuring this out in 2008. That you could do it this way. Right? Yeah. Thank you. Yes, I try to do a little bit of homework to have some credibility, but this is where it's just a matter of time that we were going to get burned on this thing. So how exactly do we undo it?
Well, one step at a time. And every time we highlight this, and you say like, you pass the bill, I think you're underscoring this fundamental fight, where the left always says we trust the quote experts, and the experts, according to the left, are always the guys or the individuals who aren't elected. So we trust the Faucis and the Boasbergs and this judge in Milwaukee. We trust them, the people who never have to put their name on a ballot, never have to get elected, aren't answerable directly to we the people. We trust them versus how our constitutional system works, which is the folks who put their name on the ballot and get elected. Those are the ones who are supposed to make the decisions, because if you don't like what they do, you get a chance to throw them out every 2 years. That's the fundamental fight. And again, the left is always, because the left wants to take your liberty away. The left is always, let's trust Dr. Fauci and the Boasbergs, and even though they're wrong all the time.
Right. Yeah. Okay. All right. So talk about what Congressman Mast has introduced.
Yeah, his bill simply says, look, if you're gonna have one of these judges who is going to come in and say, oh, no, you have to spend the money, that is not a decision for a federal district judge. That should go to the court that typically deals with that and that deals with contracts and disputes and those sort of things. It should go there. And there's a time frame, I think in the bill, it's like 180 days to make that determination. So send it there. The case of USAID, I forget what the amount was, several $1 billion.
Yeah.
That we wanted to, the Trump administration wanted to stop, and this judge says, no, you got to spend the money. That in our judgment, that judge shouldn't even have had the case. So it was sort of a double whammy, and where like you shouldn't have had the case, and then you're also deciding to spend the money, even though the guy who put his name on the ballot, who was elected on November 5th, who was the head of the executive branch, Article 2, Section 1, first sentence, executive power shall be vested in a president. Right. First sentence. They said no. It's got to be some rogue judge.
So I like that you're putting specifics on how to push back, but I want to talk big picture about what is Trump to do here? Because I spoke to him about it, and he seemed pretty sanguine about it. And I think there's a lot of just he's going to push through as much of his agenda as he can. He knows some of it is going to get stopped. Sometimes he'll even look better politically. I think the Abrego Garcia case is really aging well for our side as we learn more about his background. So I think he's fairly patient in it, but it does still feel, we're 100 days in, it feels very unsustainable to do this for 4 years, and who knows, maybe 8 years, maybe 12 years, depending on if it's another Trumpian successor in 2028 and beyond. How long can this go on? Because it feels like we can't let 600 odd district court judges each act like a mini executive branch every day. Yeah,
I think one, President Trump's going to win some of these cases. So they're winning some of these cases.
That's true.
Now, so he's going to win some. Two, some of them are going to get to the Supreme Court in a pretty timely fashion, and we'll get an ultimate decision from our highest court, the court that is spelled out, clearly in Article 3 of the Constitution. So we'll get that, and then I think third is the more you talk about it, the more there's this concern out there. And look, judges are human beings. They read the press. They probably listen to the Alex Marlow podcast, or they're reading Breitbart, or they're doing, they're doing that. So they're not immune to what's happening in the larger context.
Right.
I even think when Chief Justice Roberts, who's obviously the head of the courts, the head of, our judicial branch, when he put out that statement, a lot of people on our side thought, oh, wait a minute here. He's defending Judge Boasberg. And he was, because he said, the proper response to a decision by a district judge that you don't like is the appellate courts. And we all understand that. And he was responding to, there's a number of impeachment resolutions introduced about Judge Boasberg and some of these other judges. But I think he was also drawing attention to this overall issue. And in a much more subtle way, there's the potential that he was sending a message to the judges in the court saying, we all got to be sensitive. We all have to work. Yeah. This balance we have between these three branches of government is pretty darn important. We're the best system ever. And I think he was maybe saying that as well.
Okay, so one thing that Congressman Mast seems to be differentiating certain types of injunctions or based on the subject matter. So it's sort of like a fast track lane. I want to explore this because I think we need some sort of a fast track lane on certain cases so that they get appealed quickly and make it to the Supreme Court quickly. I think it seems like that's sort of what's going on here. But even then, I'm scared about this because the Supreme Court can't do it all themselves. I mean, we need to triple the size of the Supreme Court, and it's sort of like what Joe Biden's been arguing for the last few years. And so I got a feeling that could backfire. So what do we do?
Well, we're exploring that too. It's a really good point. I'm not for packing the court. I'm not for adding 4 justices to associate justices to the court, which is what the Democrats want to do. And of course, they only want to do that when they're in power. And
that talk's really dried up since last November for some reason.
Yeah, exactly. But I do think on certain executive actions that directly challenge the head of the executive branch, the commander in chief, the president of the United States, there may need to be some kind of expedited review so that it moves through in a much timelier way. So we're looking at that. In fact, the bill we passed that on the injunction issue, we did allow for a limited expedited review in there in a unique situation where if you had some state attorney generals from different federal districts who were bringing a federal case, and you maybe had conflicting from the District 5 or District 6 as examples, then it would get to the Supreme Court in an expedited way. So we even had a little touch of that in the bill we've already passed. So I do think that's something we got to look at. But you're right. You don't want to certainly overwhelm the court because they only take a handful of the cases that get sent to that get appealed to them anyway. But yeah, we're looking at that.
Okay, great. So what else do you recommend on this front before I try to get I want to get your thoughts on some 100-day content reflection on where we're at in the Congress, some specifics there. But on this bill, what do we do? Because this is so big for my audience. This is, I think, probably other than just sort of the tariff debate, this is probably the biggest story of the administration, to be honest.
I think we continue to do what you and I are doing. We talk about this because the more you highlight it, the more everyone in the country, including people in our federal court system, hear about this and understand. Like, you may have some judge who wants to make some big decision, but I think they want to think about it, and they want to be consistent with the Constitution and who actually runs the executive branch. So we each have our role. Legislative, judicial, executive. We each have our role, and that's again the beauty of our amazing system.
All right. Well, more details in the bill at in the article at Breitbart News from Congressman Jordan and Congressman Mast. Let me get your take on the House right now. What you guys are working on. Tell me just things you're excited about, and then my question for you is, how do we get stuff moving quicker? Because I want to see those smaller bills, individualized bills, if possible. I want to see a big tax cut. Give me a progress report on some of these things.
Well, we spent like 8 hours in the committee markup yesterday. We did our portion of the reconciliation, and our directive from the budget committee was for the Judiciary Committee to spend $110 billion. And that was for making sure the resources are there to continue to secure the border. What we ended up doing, working closely with the White House, is we only spent $81 billion. And even what I'm probably more proud of is we actually achieved, according to the CBO scoring, we achieved $80 billion in savings. So we netted out even, instead of just having a net cost to the taxpayer of 110, we netted out at zero. And we did that through some fee structures. And our attitude was, in our bill, the taxpayer shouldn't have to pay for immigration enforcement and security and border security. It should be the people applying for visas and coming to the country. So it's sort of a kind of a different approach we took. But we were pleased with that bill. That bill is going to have resources that will allow 10,000 new ICE agents, 100,000 new detention beds, and resources to repatriate a million migrants, illegal aliens a year. So exactly what the White House wanted, and we feel good about that. But now the harder part is putting all the committees' work together in the one big beautiful bill, as the president says, that makes sure we cut taxes and does the right things for the country.
What are you eyeing in terms of tax cuts? Where do you think are the areas that are going to be targeted? Because I'm curious about this, because there's a lot of discussion of inflation. There's a lot of discussion of the debt deficit being too high, but we do need to get these tax cuts going. I'm pro cutting taxes all the time under any circumstances. It's just sort of I guess I read a lot of sort of
your supply side.
A lot of supply side literature in the Marlow household being passed around when I was growing up. But that said, there are some complications in this particular economic environment. So where do you think the focus should be?
Well, we want to renew what we have, and that was the Trump tax cut from 7-8 years ago. That was so effective, and if we don't renew that, that means taxes go up, and we're certainly not for that. So I come from the same vein of the conservative Republican Party movement, which is letting moms and dads keep more of their money is a good thing, so that they can use that money to chase down their goals, their dreams, and accomplish what they want for their family. And it's really that basic. And if you have taxes go up, that means moms and dads and families have less money. I just don't think that makes sense. So I'm always for trying to let families keep more and government have less, because I think that means more freedom, more opportunity for the families I get the privilege of representing. So I agree with you 100%. We should do it. Now, it should be as simple as possible. But we're going to do a few things that the president campaigned on, which I like, that I think are pretty good concepts. People who work hard and get tips, they just have to pay taxes on the tips. And the president campaigned on that, and he's one guy who I so appreciate does what he told the voters he was going to do. So that'll be something that'll be new to the tax bill and the tax code. But I think that's positive.
Two more quick ones. This one won't be too quick, but I do want a little taste of it because I've been meaning to get to this with the audience. You're hot on this ActBlue fraud that's apparently going on over there. I love this story. I've been kind of living vicariously through some of my colleagues in the podcasting radio space who've been all over this thing. But what is your take here? Because I know you're focused on it. Well, what are we doing?
Well, several people at ActBlue have been dismissed. One person, this was a story about a month ago, one individual had not been dismissed, but had somehow been prohibited from getting access to their emails, which we found interesting. Some of these people were associated with, fraud prevention and at ActBlue. What we do know is there's concern there, and so we have sent letters to all 7 of those individuals asking for information, communications, documents. And at some point, we're going to want to talk to those folks, because when you go back and look, the amount of money they were raising, and then this story that was in someone in the media, I forget who had written the story, and then what little information we've gotten thus far, which shows there was really no real concern for preventing fraud, makes us all concerned, particularly when last year during the campaign, there were first-time congressional candidates, people that no one ever heard of. Some Joe Bag of Donuts running for Congress in X district in, Timbuktu, California, was raising $2 and $3 million a quarter, which no one has ever heard of. No one ever does. A congressional candidate?
Yeah.
That just didn't make sense to us. And then when you see that there was really no focus on fraud, and they knew it at ActBlue based on some of the preliminary things we've seen, we felt like what the old line is, where there's smoke, there may be fire. And so we're going to look into this, because it's just not fair elections are supposed to be fair and accurate.
Great. And the last one is, so I would normally ask you to give a grade for the first 100 days, but you could get in trouble if you don't give an A+. So why don't you give me a highlight for you that maybe is underrated, and then something that you really want to ramp up, focus on in the next 100?
I think it's 100 days of winning for President Trump. I would say A+. Because in my mind, there's lots of things he's done, but the 3 biggest: secure the border. Amazing. Just what we've seen the numbers. Second, record recruitment in our military. One of the primary functions of the federal government is to protect the country, and you can't protect the country if you don't have the right people in your military, people who want to serve. And when you have an all volunteer system like we do, that's just been phenomenal. And then third, because it's where we spend so much of our time, but it's also, I think, a reflection on our concern about protecting liberty, is the agencies are now run by individuals in the Trump administration, every federal agency that actually cares about we the people, versus using the agency and the power of government to weaponize and go after the very taxpayers it's supposed to serve. And the ones we deal with most are Department of Homeland Security and the Department of Justice. Under Biden, Department of Homeland Security was setting up, this is something you guys were really covered well, was the Disinformation Governance Board.
Sure. Yeah, of course.
Tell us what we could say, what we couldn't say, what you could post, what you could tweet, what you can read is ridiculous. And now that same agency is removing hardened criminals who are here illegally from our country. And then DOJ is night and day. just night and day with Pam Bondi and Todd Blanche and Kash Patel at DOJ. They're no longer investigating parents at school board meetings and pro-life Catholics. They're actually going after bad guys.
The big stuff. Congressman Jim Jordan, what can I do to get people involved in anything that matters to you? Where should I send them?
Oh, they can go to our Twitter. We got a few people who follow us on Twitter. So
a few. I think everyone on Twitter follows you. I think you've got. I think
so
you've got them all.
They can go. Yeah, we can go there. We got a good team of people working here for the Judiciary Committee, and
I can pull my audience. How many? Are you a daily Marlow Show listener and you do not follow Congressman Jordan on Twitter? How many of those people are out there? I would like to figure out what I want to meet that cross section of the Venn diagram. I don't think that it's a lot of people.
I would hope not. And I want to come on more. I can't believe as soon as I saw this today, I'm like, oh yeah, we haven't been on Alex Show in a while. We got to do it more.
Thank you. That means a lot to me. I know you have always been so productive in the Congress, and that matters because we see a lot of people just want to hang out and you want to work, and that's what we love here at Breitbart News at the Marlow Show. So thank you, Congressman. We will do this again post haste, and keep up the good work.
All right, you too. Take care, brother.
Folks, have you seen what's happened to gold this year? It's up 25%, over $3,400 an ounce. Meanwhile, the stock market, it's total chaos, bouncing around, losing trillions of dollars. The Dow could have just seen the worst month since the Great Depression. Inflation's still running hot. We got the national debt at $36 trillion. All that spells chaos. But then there's gold, which Goldman Sachs says could hit $3,700 an ounce this year. And I've got friends at Priority Gold that can get you a free gold guide now that will teach you how you can buy gold for yourself. You'll learn how to lock in today's gold prices, and you'll learn how to invest in an IRA or 401k with gold, tax and penalty free. And all you got to do is text the letters SNC, as in Salem News Channel. Text SNC to the number 24999 to get your free 2025 gold guide right now. Just text SNC, like Salem News Channel, SNC to 24999, and you'll get your free gold guide now. Gold prices could increase at any time. That's why you got to text SNC to 24999 now to get in there with my friends at Priority Gold. All right. This Congressman Jim Jordan. Let me just roll straight into some reader responses to some stuff that's going on. I asked a big question of the audience, really big question. And that was, would you rather have a pet snake or would you rather have a pet rat? And the answers might shock you or not at all. It was a lot more votes for the rat than the snake. This came up because I had a rat incident. And then I became mildly obsessed online with people who have pet pythons, even though they know that they could kill them. And I got a lot of recommendations online, but let me give you a few of the highlights I got. William Slatton over at our YouTube. You guys got to check out the YouTube. It's a visual show. We do cool stuff with the visuals. And I know that people like the audio downloads, but hit that subscribe button on YouTube and Rumble. You'll enjoy it. Snakes are the devil, says so in the Bible. Say no to snakes in your house. And you know why I bring this up first? One of the reasons why I wanted to be negative on snakes is because of the fact that biblically it's pretty clear that's a symbol of not good stuff that's happening whenever snakes around. It's not positive. So I should have mentioned that. I did not mention that originally, but that was a big thing. Anthony Dolio recommends rats over snakes of any kind, including pythons. I agree with that as well. Valvend. I'm 1 out of 3 reading the names so far on the YouTube. Pet snake, rats can escape and recruit their friends. Oof, that's scary. And Alpha XX says, good grief, neither snakes or rats as pets, get a cat. So that's not the game. And you guys, we got to have fun here on the show. Misty, I'm hearing feedback, by the way. You got to have fun here on the show. The scenario I posed was very simple. Rats or snakes. That's it. I'm a dog person. I was formerly a cat person. This is one of the things that Mrs. Dr. Marlow, who's a dog person, actually found charming about me when we were in our courtship, is that I seemed to be a pretty traditional American man or boy at the time. But I was still a cat guy. And she's converted me to a dog person, but I could get back to cats. I'm worried the allergies are worse now because the cat allergies tend to be a bit more intense. But I can get through it. The game is rat versus snake. That's the game. And if you guys are not going to play it, then I will not indulge you. In fact, I will absolutely indulge you. I have not. It's fine. Let's see. Heading over to, here you go. Get a small garter snake, another YouTube commenter. So garter snake, I'm not into this. I'll tell you why I don't like a garter snake, because it sounds too close to garden snake. And I don't know why they did this, but it's very annoying to me because the garter snake is often found in the garden. The words are completely unrelated, but sound too similar. The English language does these stupid things all the time. Like, for example, how we have three theirs. We have their possessive, there as in over there, and there as in the contraction for they are. Like it makes you think that we are not thought things through well enough as a peoples, because I don't think we need to have a garter snake in the garden. That can't be, we can't have to do better than this, right? As a people. All right, let's see. Okay, here's another vote for rat from Philip Godden. Our kids have pet rats. They're great pets. One would ride around in my shoulder, a la The Abyss. The Abyss, I've seen The Abyss a couple times. Is there a rat on the shoulder in that? I don't remember. I don't remember it well enough. Only issue is they steal your heart but don't live long enough. Oh, this is a huge deal. I had hamsters growing up, and just like so many kids, and none of them made it a month. I also had a cat, so you can do the math on that. And it was brutal. You get to know this thing. I wrote a song about one of the hamsters that died, and I won an award for it in elementary school. It's funny with my sense of humor, my dry sense of humor. I don't know if any of you could tell that actually was a real story. I really did write a song about a dead hamster and win an award growing up. That did happen. That's not a joke. Not a joke. Missy Blue Dow says, why are these the only choices? Team Dog. Missy, I'm on Team Dog too. We're playing a game here of species that are frowned upon in society. That's what we're talking about. Let's see. Glenn Curtis wants me to get a fish. If you can't get a dog, I've got a dog. I like a fish. So, it's unbelievable. I have a great fish story. So a couple of Halloweens ago, all the kids won Goldfish at a Halloween carnival. And I had decided, half tongue in cheek, that what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this goldfish really seriously. I'm going to get some goldfish longevity here. And I decided to take care of this goldfish. And I made a deal with my wife. If I make it to Christmas, we will get the actual fish tank for the goldfish. So we got Flossie was the fish's name. And I took care of Flossie, and it just absolutely amused my wife because I'm busy and I got a lot of children. I run a little stressed, and I don't know if I run stressed. I probably run not stressed for the amount of stress I take on. I probably run kind of chill for that. But I got a stress is. I have stress is. And I said, I'm going to take this goldfish project very seriously. And lo and behold, I kept Flossie alive for 2 months. And I wake up Christmas morning and Santa Claus has brought me the fish tank. And Flossie did not make it 20 minutes in the fish tank. I think Flossie got sucked up by the filter, even though we tried to get something that was gentle so that it wouldn't suck up the fish, but we did not do it right. And Flossie was dead within 20 minutes. So I got everything set up. I got the rocks. You can kind of place your fake sea anemones and your fake corals on the bottom of the tank. And it was really sort of a fun activity. I made sure the water was just right, and Flossie was dead almost instantly. So that could be the end of me getting a fish, but that would have been a fun one. Fish, snake, or rat. Though we probably just would have gotten too many fish comments. All right. I've got a pile of additional great email that I'm not going to get to today, but there's a lot of responses to my wanting to dismantle the Scholastic Book Fair. I'm going to I've got some really thoughtful ones on this that I will put a pin in those. So if you have thoughts on the book fair, it's not that I don't love book fairs. A couple of you misinterpreted this. I like the idea of a book fair. I just don't like Scholastic running it and the way they run it in such a way where it's basically a manipulation to trick the parents in the schools into selling woke books to children. And it becomes a guilt trip thing for the parents. And the books are either dumb or woke or both. there's not a lot of balance, and there's not the sort of things that are necessarily enriching. I feel like there's a different way to do this to get children excited about reading. Some of you are offering some suggestions, and we will do that, but just on a subsequent show. I've made a decision. I'm going to create some more content for tomorrow beyond my Alan Jackson interview, because there's just too much fun stuff. Missy's pulled all these amazing clips I haven't gotten to. So we will do more tomorrow as well. So we'll have a big interview with Pastor Alan Jackson. I'll have some more newsy content for you. And that'll be it, though, for today. Thanks to Congressman Jordan. Thanks to Misty. Thanks to all of you in the audience for emailing aloha@alexmarlow.com, sharing the show, liking, all that stuff helps us a lot. And talk to you next time.